But if anything, I feel more pressure now than ever because I think that in your 20s, we give people a little bit of leeway. You're still figuring it out. You're still a youthful person. You're an adult, but people who are older than you know you're not an adult for real, because there's still so much to learn. But then it's like if you're still figuring things out when you're in your 30s, then I think people start to look at you like you're crazy. Like, okay.
Yeah, we need to stop doing that. That's one of the problems that we're facing right now is that we're not taking life serious enough. You know, yeah, you got time, make mistakes. No. This is again. Welcome back, guys. Mike here, and today we are with Tanisha Talks. We're also looking for 1,000 subscribers. The title is I'm Failing at Adulting, Feeling Behind at Age 30. Now, I think that I haven't watched this, and in fact, I skipped the intro because I started watching it, but we'll see some honest reactions here. So I think a lot of women are going to be able to relate to this, a lot of women today, but these points need to be addressed. So let's go ahead and see what we got.
Myself is that I stay busy as a way to distract myself from all of the things that I have going on internally.
That's everybody. Most people do that.
I think that many women can relate to the fact that when you turn 30, there's a lot of societal pressures to have children, to have a spouse, but also there's a sense of ageism. There's this fixation with being young and getting facelifts and getting fillers and doing all these things to maintain your beauty. And that's why anti-aging brands are a multi-million-dollar, if not billion-dollar industry, because we fear getting old. Ageism is so ingrained in all of us that we don't even really realize it. I would get feedback like, oh my gosh, what? You're 30? You look so young. And it's like, granted, I'm thankful because it probably was intended to be a compliment, and I'm happy that people acknowledge that I put an effort to keep up with my appearance. But 30 is like old. You're expecting to see wrinkles. Like, what is a 30-year-old supposed to look like? What has society programmed us to think that a 30-year-old is supposed to look or feel like? It's like as soon as we hit 30, your perceived value just suddenly declines. And all of a sudden you go from being a pretty young adult to being geriatric overnight. You're like, yo, what the freak just happened? I think that the biggest issue for me,
in the eyes of men, yeah. That's how that works. Yeah. You know, this is one of the reasons why I say that we need to start promoting. I'm going to be pro marriage, right? But one of the nuances that I talk about is that we need to do a better job of raising our sons and daughters so that they're actually we need to start. How do I say this? As parents, we need to do a better job of raising our kids to work in cooperation with each other. Because this is one of the reasons why the average age of a person getting married is so close to 30, when it actually is, we needed to be lower than that. We needed to be like under 25. Just you guys can have that gives the couple enough time so they can get to know each other and they can build a proper foundation before they start throwing kids into the mix. A lot of the reasons why the comments that she's talking about being 30 come up, it's mostly biology. It has to do with kids. Does everybody say that? No, because it's an unconscious thing.
Is struggling with my sense of identity. You know, it's a very, very interesting feeling to reach the age of 30 and realize that you don't really know who you are. And then as soon as you feel like you know who you are, all of a sudden you're transforming. So it's like I'm always racing to try to catch up to being in this space where I just feel very sure of myself. And I feel like I'm almost there, but I never quite reach it. From a really, really young age, I felt like I've always had to prove myself to people, whether that be my family, friends, career, school. I've always had to go above and beyond to reach these standards that really don't even matter in the long run, right? Getting the approval of other people, getting feedback, getting validation about who I am as a person. That somehow made me feel a little bit more content in my identity because it made me feel like I had a sense of worth. And so I'm at a point in my life now where I'm truly living for myself more so than being happy with other people approving of who I am.
imagine again. And one of the things I talk about is that again we're talking about doing better with the way we raise our our children. A lot of times our children are just immature. And I'm not calling her immature, but imagine if she'd reached this mentality 5 years ago. It's just, I mean, I applaud her for number one, for being able to have these self discussions on YouTube in a public forum. Never gonna shame her for the things that she says on camera. But again, what would happen if, we were raising our children to mentally mature faster? Because the things she's talking about, they're very much valid. And this is very, I think she's talking about, these are universal things that both men and women go through, just from different perspectives. For guys' perspective, I'll hit on that later. Let's just keep going.
When the clock struck midnight, I was in Mexico. There was this huge sense of regret with everything. The relationships that failed, both platonic and romantic, with good people where I knew I was at fault. The relationships that I entertained for too long, where I felt like I wanted to be treated like a queen and put on a pedestal, but I let people walk over me like I was a doormat. The risk that I didn't take in my career, the education that I wish I would have pursued. It was just like this overwhelming feeling of dread. And all of my friends are telling me that turning 30 is great. It's so much better than your 20s. You're gonna feel like you know yourself. And I'm just trying to figure out when this is gonna happen. Maybe I'm rushing the process, but I don't see it. I just don't see it. And maybe I'm not putting myself in the right headspace. Maybe I'm just being too negative and hard on myself.
No, she's not. So we talked about this in the previous video where, and let me see if I can, what, I'm not even doing that no more. What I talked about was the fact that about trauma bonding and about, what you and I have been through the same thing, so we should be friends and hang out. Yeah, see, now this is a problem that's more so with women, because it's not just because you guys are women. It's just because you are the more social gender, right? You guys' social skills are superior to us. So a lot of times you will seek out the group because it's just where your strength lies. So now the real question is that the people that are telling her this, are any of them married? See, I know, and it seems like I'm trying to, talk down on her, but the reality is like, you need to, we've all heard this phrase, you dress for the job that you want to have, or, you dress for the job that you want, not the one that you have. It's the same thing with relationships. I'm a big believer that if, when my daughters are of age and they're going to want to be married, then one of the things that my wife and I are going to have a conversation with is to say, okay, who are your friends? Are you friends with any married people? Are you friends with any wives? Because we're going to I'm going to do my best to raise my daughters. My wife and I are going to have to tag team to make sure that, yes, we're raising our daughters to be wives. But it also becomes, okay, who are you hanging out with? I've watched one YouTube creator who mentioned the fact that, him and his wife, they did not let their daughter hang out with children who grew up in single parent households. Now, I don't know if that's extreme or not. My kids are too young for that to be a concern right now, but it's something to think about though, right? Because, you pick up habits. So, yeah, I don't know. This is an interesting conversation, though. Let's keep it going.
But if anything, I feel more pressure now than ever, because I think that in your 20s, we give people a little bit of leeway. You're still figuring it out. You're still a youthful person. You're an adult, but people who are older than you know you're not an adult for real, because there's still so much to learn. But then it's like, if you're still figuring things out when you're in your 30s, then I think people start to look at you like you're crazy. Like, okay.
Yeah, we need to stop doing that. That's one of the problems that we're facing right now, is that we're not taking life serious enough. Yeah, you got time, make mistakes. No. This is, again, This is one of the concepts the mentalities that's broken in our community. You want to talk about avoiding mistakes? That's what you have elders in the community for, so you can learn from them, so you can avoid those mistakes. But again, there are several social constructs that are broken in our community that are preventing us from rebuilding it. And if we don't solve these, and it's never going to happen. I talk a lot about untapped resources in our community. The elders in our community are one. We don't want to do it. We don't want to listen to them. Why? I'm not really sure. Because if you could help me avoid a headache, yeah, and it lines up with where I want to go, the goals that I have, yes, I'm going to take you, what you say, under advisement. So this whole notion about, well, you're young, you're 20s, go ahead and do that. No, because I already told y'all, one of the problems in our communities is we're pushing marriage off too far. You push marriage off into your 30s. Okay, well, when are you going to have kids? As soon as you get married, but you and your spouse have not had time to build the foundation properly. Now you take the time to build the foundation, but now you're in high risk pregnancy, and there's a chance that you won't have any kids. Got to raise our kids to be to mentally mature sooner, so that they have proper a time span, so that they can do these things, get better at it. Yeah, so there's a lot going on here. We got to keep it going.
What's going on? Why aren't you progressing? Why are you being stagnant? Why are you complacent? And then, of course, the messaging that we see on social media that as soon as you hit 30, your looks just suddenly take a plunge. You're not desirable. You'll never be picked over someone who's younger in their 20s. And so you have all of these different messages, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to be very positive. I'm trying to be in a good headspace. Positive affirmations, love yourself. But then you have all of these different negative messages coming from everywhere, and it's pressure. It's like when there's a dam or there's a pipe, and no matter what the climate is like, whether you're experiencing cold days, sunnier days, weathering the storm, those pipes withstand that pressure. But then after a while, if you're not doing maintenance on the pipes, self-care, loving yourself, attending to yourself, making sure you're refreshed, the pipes, they get worn down, and then they suddenly just collapse.
Okay, so I don't want her to get too far away from the thing she said. That's why I'm like keep having to pause it. But realistically, this is another misconception, and it tends to be single people who make these talking points about, particularly when it comes to discussion of women over 30. Oh, your looks are failed. She hit the wall. She's done. How many times I got to read that? That stuff is a lie. Okay. You go to start talking to married people, and you will understand why it's a lie. This whole thing about, well, yeah, you'll never be able to compete with your younger self, because once you hit 30, that's it. Show's over, all the lights is on, and it's time to go home. Life doesn't work like that. Okay. What tends to happen is that women, I got this from another YouTuber. It's a great concept, but what he was saying is that women stop maturing once they realize that that they can receive attention from men because of their sexuality, right? Because of their looks, or however you want to describe it. But once that happens, women stop maturing, and they don't start to mature again until their looks start to fade, and they realize, wait a minute, I'm not getting the same level of attention here. My looks, they keep going after these younger girls. I better develop something else, like a personality, so I can start competing with them, because you can compete with younger women. It's just that the internet is not going to tell you that. Well, let me rephrase that. When you talk to dating coaches who are not married, they're not going to tell you that, right? But this is why I said we need more married people making content. Guys, because I'm going to wrap this up here, because this video isn't going on long enough. These are great talks. It's great conversations. And, I'm always going to be appreciative that she's putting these up. But this is another problem in our community is that we spend too much time listening to people, so-called relationship experts or dating coaches. Okay, but these dating coaches that you guys are following, if your goal is marriage, is your coach, have they achieved that goal? Because I'm telling you, married people think differently. Again, this is why we need more married people making content, because ultimately staying married for an extended period of time requires you to change your thought, the way you think about relationships. And you don't have these same processes when you're single. Just like married men who are husband material, they're going to look for more value than just looks. Yeah, looks get you in the door, but the older you get, the less we're going to rely on how good you look. Always remember this. I remember Kevin Samuel said this, right? He said, men will go down in looks to go up in cooperation. 100% right. This is why I say that the so-called wall is not the end, that be all end all. Just because your looks start to fade doesn't mean you don't have any value. And I hate the fact that there's so many channels out there that start to say that, well, I'm only going to date women. I'm never going to date a woman over the age of 25. Good luck with that. Most of those men tend not to be they're not trying to get married anyway. So if that's you, I mean, if you're a guy, you're not trying to get married, then that makes perfect sense. But the problem is that if most women want to get married, then what are we really talking about? Something to think about. But guys, look, great conversation, very high level conversation going on here. So we definitely will be back. I'm gonna say goes to the next time. Peace. Thanks for making it to the end of this video. But do me another favor, like and subscribe, but also check out these here. Either subscribe or watch videos, one or the other. I don't know which side, but hey, all right.